6010. Fantasy Focus.
Hello and welcome to Fantasy Focus Football alongside Field Yates. My name is Daniel Dopp, here to dive into a bunch of fun fantasy conversation. Field, we got to watch actual NFL football last night.
Yeah, or something close to it.
Something close to it. The Chargers at least played football. I don't know about the Lions, but we'll dive into that in a little bit.
I have an observation.
Okay.
I feel like your intros this year have included almost like a ring announcer to them, right?
A little bit.
Hello and welcome to
I've been working on that.
Fantasy Focus Football.
Little gravel in the voice to get up. You kind of want to bring out the little, you know what I mean?
I've been watching Unreal, the documentary from the WWE on Netflix.
Yep.
It's tremendous. You could be a ring announcer.
Oh, Phil, that's so nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Side gig for you during the off season, perhaps?
Why not? A little voice work? You don't have to be pretty to be able to do that, so I can make that happen.
I think you could be an excellent ring announcer.
I love that, Field. All right, well, hey, we got a bunch on the show today.
Yeah, we do.
We've been doing our tiers the entire week, right? We
Wrap
did
'em up
quarterbacks
today.
Tuesday. We're wrapping up quarterbacks Tuesday, running backs Wednesday.
Yeah.
To wide receivers Thursday. Was that right? Did we do wide receivers?
Whatever. I think it was quarterback,
and then
wide receiver, running backs, and
tight
then we
ends
saved
today.
the worst for last.
So we're going to dive into tight ends today. We're also going to take a bunch of your questions. Head on over to the YouTube chat. Great way to be able to get your questions answered today. We will answer them at the end of the show. And we got some news that we're going to dive into in a little bit, Field Yates. But first and foremost, I got to tell the people about New York City. Because we are going to be live in New York again this year, in case this is your first time listening to the show. Thursday, August 7th at the Gramercy Theater in New York City. 6:30 doors, 7:30 show. You get food, you get swag, you get some drinks. There's a meet and greet, all for just $35, Field.
Hell of a deal right there. And then 1 week later, we head to Philadelphia. Same thing is on the table, $35 for food and swag, plus the meet and greet. That's Fantasy Focus Live Philly.com. That's at Union Transfer, which I admit that I haven't spent a ton of time in Philadelphia, but I hear that Union Transfer is awesome.
It is dope.
And then another week later, Daniel, we go to get our tan on.
The Bahamas going back again this year. The ESPN Fantasy Football Ultimate Draft Weekend is back for year 2 from August 21st to the 24th in the Bahamas. Enjoy an oceanfront stay at the luxurious Bahama Resort and exclusive events like our one-of-a-kind beach combine. You get to mingle with celebrity guests and NFL players throughout the weekend, including Todd Gurley, Golden Tate, Kyle Rudolph, and Mike Clay. You know, that's a little tear down. He's in the second
write
tier.
this script for you?
You get insights from your favorite ESPN fantasy football experts before drafting your squad at our epic live draft party. Field is going to be a ton of fun this year. And if you can't bring out your whole league, that's okay. Come out by yourself. We'll put you in a league and we will still have a ton of fun.
Can't wait for that. Should be awesome. One last hurrah to summer before we dive into the fantasy football regular season. We got some news, Daniel. We'll talk about the Hall of Fame game, I guess, for like 30 seconds in a minute. But things are getting a little bit interesting right now in D.C.
Let's kick things off with the opening drive. All right, Field Yates.
If you're watching, that was cooler because there was a transition.
There was a
if you're
transition.
listening, it just went quiet.
I appreciate you.
I don't even know what the noise you would make to emulate the opening.
Or something. There's got to be like something like that.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. Last night, and you've probably been in this situation much more than I have. I was doing ESPN Bet Live with Tyler Fulgham last night. We get to the C block, and they say, "Hey guys, breaking news from Adam Schefter. Forget everything that we just planned on."
Yeah.
Adam Schefter reporting that Terry McLaurin has requested a trade from the Washington Commanders.
Yep.
My question to you is this legitimate and something that we should worry about, or is this an agent working with the team knowing that a deal is likely going to get done?
I've learned, and I was talking to you before this, about how Schefter has reminded many people that like Khalil Mack and the Raiders were going to get a deal done until they couldn't.
Until they didn't.
And he got traded to the Bears on September 1st. So I don't want to rule out the possibility that Terry McLaurin gets traded. I still think it's probably unlikely. When you're a player that's disgruntled, there are some cards you can play. You can hold out, you can hold in, you can request a trade. We have seen Trey Hendrickson do the same with the Cincinnati Bengals. To this point, now their player has been paid. We still have, 30 plus days? We have 5 weeks until the Commanders play their first game of the season. So this is not something that has me totally concerned about whether Terry McLaurin will be in D.C. or not. I think it would be a difficult deal to execute. Not many teams have the cap space at this juncture of the offseason to be executing these kind of deals. Yeah. The DK Metcalf trade, for example, was much, much earlier when so many things were far more fluid. On top of that, it's an expensive cost. You're going to have to pay the Commanders a draft pick, And you'd have to pay Terry McLaurin a big-time contract, which he is worthy of. That being said, if this were an easy deal to get done, it would already be done.
Sure.
My bet is that Terry McLaurin remains a Washington Commander, but for now, it makes you feel a little bit more uneasy, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, and I feel like we can't talk about what McLaurin's value would be elsewhere until we knew what team and offense he was going to be in.
Yeah.
But if this happened, Terry McLaurin's not there, do things feel different with Jaden Daniels at all, knowing that the guy he threw 13 of his 25 passing touchdowns, over 50% of his passing touchdowns went to Terry McLaurin? Of course, his rushing is going to be able to continue to elevate that floor.
Yeah.
But would he by any chance move out of that tier 1 quarterbacks, or is he still just too good?
He would probably remain right in that tier 1. You think about some of the quarterbacks that we've categorized him with, Lamar Jackson. Like, when have you said to yourself, hey, the reason behind Lamar Jackson's brilliant seasons is that pass catching group is just so electric.
We don't say that about
It's very
Lamar.
rare, right?
Yeah.
For Jaden Daniels, the pathway to quarterback 1 is the possibility of throwing 30 touchdown passes, but also rushing for 10 more and 1,000 yards.
Right.
So that's still very much in play here for Jaden Daniels. The wide receiver core is also better this year outside of Terry McLaurin than it was last year. Everybody likes to beat up on Deebo Samuel because I think he looks big during training camp. Still a pretty good player, very motivated.
Yeah.
And the team, speaking of money, they paid Deebo Samuel, I think it was $19 million for this upcoming season. So to me, it would not knock Jaden Daniels down very much.
Okay.
Even though I also acknowledge, like, it's a pretty remote possibility, I think, that he gets
traded.
I think it's remote right now. It's August 1st. So that
Sure.
could change by, tonight. But I would say I categorize it as unlikely to happen. And if it does happen, I still have Jaden Daniels in that tier 1. Maybe he gets pushed down a player position ranking 1 spot or 2 spots.
There have definitely been situations in fantasy football where we've thought this is very unlikely to happen. We never thought Le'Veon Bell was going to sit out for an entire season, even when we were doing that. I hope that we don't get to that point. But it's just one of those things where you never know. This is why we have the conversation, just so you can get those wheels turning in case something does happen. Wide receivers and the rest of that offense, you got Noah Brown, you got Luke McCaffrey. They drafted a guy in the 5th round, right? Jalen, am I making that up? I mean, they might have not grabbed somebody. I'm trying to think of the rest of that Commanders wide receiving core, and it's not super deep behind those guys.
It is not super deep. They drafted Jalen Lane in the 4th
Jalen Lane,
round
there you
out
go.
of Virginia Tech. I thought he was the best punt return man in the draft. I did not think he was ready to be a year 1 contributor at wide receiver.
Okay.
But if Terry McLaurin is unavailable, even if it's for a game at the beginning of the season, again, I don't think he's going to get traded, but you never know. And so for now, we're planning for all contingencies. Somebody is going to have to take on a much more prominent role.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the Hall of Fame game, because speaking of rookie wide receivers.
Anything that stood out to you last year?
Yeah, Isaac Tesla and Dominic Lovett, but that's because I'm a Lions fan.
Yeah.
That was
Lovett
more for
dropped
fun.
that very first
Oh,
target.
that was tough.
Yeah.
Honestly, the thing that stood out to me most, I know we were watching Amari Hampton and Trey Harris, but what stood out to me was Trey Lance being able to lead that team down the field and score multiple touchdowns.
Yeah, probably more of a football story than it is a fantasy.
I agree with you on that.
Right?
Yeah.
But cool for Trey Lance, a guy that I think I'd like to see him settle in somewhere. Probably as a backup. Let's be honest. But for a player who's in a pretty unusual football journey, cool to see him seemingly in a good spot as Justin Herbert's backup now with the Chargers. Hampton played a series. He almost had a touchdown. Actually, Rocky Yassin for the Lions made a beautiful tackle on him there. But Chris Collinsworth said something, and it might have been like a touch hyperbolic, but it was something to the effect of, like, I've never heard coaches talk about Omari, a player or a rookie, like they were Omari and Hampton. So safe to say, optimism is through the roof for Hampton. All of this is, of course, against the backdrop of Najee Harris not yet practicing for the Chargers. We said this during the running back tier show, which was yesterday. Like there's a pathway to Omari and Hampton being a top 10 player at the position. But if Najee Harris returns tomorrow, I don't think that Najee is just pushed away to the side entirely. I think Najee is good enough that Hampton at the beginning of the season might be more like RB22, because him and Najee could theoretically split carries, whereas by weeks 4, 5, 6, all the way to the back half of the season, you could just be like, all right, the 6'2", 221-pound freight train from North Carolina that we drafted 22 overall, he's the guy that is going to be the centerpiece of our running game going forward.
I mean, and that's what we're expecting, right? But that doesn't mean that they're not going to use 2 backs. I believe that Jim Harbaugh did the same thing last year. Once Gus Edwards ended up coming back and being healthy, like they split time with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. So obviously Dobbins, unfortunately left the season early, getting hurt, but I would expect that as well. Anything else from the Hall of Fame game?
Keandre Lambert-Smith.
I was going to say something about it. Honestly, I mean, they were pumped about it. That was a really nice catch in the back of the end zone. Where was he drafted?
Fifth round.
Okay.
I had a 4th round grade on him. I actually, in our Dynasty League, which we play in, it was originally 12 ESPN employees. Now it's, I think, half and half.
Yep.
Matthew in it, Kyle's in it, amongst the department, Jeremy Lemblad and Damian Nebraski and Ed Eck and also DJ Gallo. So half and half now. And I added Keandre Lambert-Smith on waivers recently. So last night, and it was one of those, I was like laughing last night. I'm like, told you all, right?
Yeah.
Like, this was the beginning. Well, this would be the second year of a dynasty in a dynasty team. Like the player, went to Penn State for 4 seasons. Then he went to Auburn for just 1 year.
Yep.
Only player, or he has the most 80-plus yard catches in Penn State history. He's very fast, very skinny as well.
Yeah.
But he's been having a great camp so far. So definitely a name. Not going to crack the top 50 of wide receivers, but a name to monitor here for the Chargers. They, of course, also drafted Trey Harris, 2nd round out of Ole Miss. So the pathway for Keandre Lambert-Smith to playing opposite of Ladd McConkey includes continuing to show better than Trey Harris, so they have a pretty steep investment.
Yeah, they like Trey Harris a lot. Only got 1 target last night, didn't play a ton, but excited to see what Trey Harris can do in this offense.
Yep.
All right, that's going to wrap it up from the Hall of Fame game field. Let's dive into our tight end tiers.
Let's just talk about the position before we get started, right, Daniel? It's the thinnest position in fantasy football.
It is.
Remember last year, it felt like we were maybe starting to fatten out that tier of tight ends that we kind of felt good about.
Yeah.
Didn't love it this year.
Nope.
As a matter of fact, there were 10 that I was like, all right, pretty good. There are definitely some interesting flyers, some very young players, 2 first-round tight ends, 2 tight ends taken in the first 14 picks this year. But this does not feel like a year in which if you wait on the tight end spot, you're going to find gold very often.
Yeah.
I feel like the guys at the top are probably going to be the ones that pay off, which might mean being a touch more aggressive in drafts, especially with some of the guys that I have ranked players 4 through 10.
I think you're spot on, Field, and in an island position, right? We talked about the other island position is quarterback. You can wait. We're actually
options,
like waiting at quarterback.
You can't draw an equivalent to this, but like there isn't like Caleb Williams, Drake May, Justin Fields, Justin Herbert. Like that was 4 names just off the top of my dome that I'm like, I like all of them.
All of those guys.
There's not as many guys that I'm sitting there that are not in my top 10 where I'm like them all, baby.
Yep.
It's just a thin spot this year.
I think this is where tiers come in more than ever is at the tight end position, because when I get to a spot where I'm watching the draft board and my queues shrink, it's like, boy, I want to make sure I grab one of these tight ends that's in a tier that I think is worthy of being a starter.
Totally.
Otherwise, you are just going to be playing that streaming game trying to just find matchups, right?
And I think we talk about draft strategy kind of implicitly throughout shows, but it really matters if you're picking on one of the polls, right? If you're picking 1st or 10th in a 10-team league and you're not going to see a guy again for 19 picks, some value in being 5th overall or 6th overall for that matter, but especially pertinent when you have one of those extreme positions. But let's get into it, Daniel, because I think we're going to be pretty aligned early.
Yep.
As we get into our S tier, and this is the smallest tier, or my S and A tier, the 2 smallest tiers I had for any position.
Me too.
Across the board this week.
We'll throw them up on the screen right now as we're talking about this.
S tier for me is 2 players. Brock Bowers, Trey McBride. Look at that.
Look at that.
For you. All right. So let's 2 questions here.
Okay.
Is Brock Bowers far ahead of Trey McBride? A little bit ahead of Trey McBride? Or coin flip, basically?
I think it's a coin flip.
Okay, me too. I mean, 3rd in the NFL in catches last year for Brock Bowers, 4th in the NFL last year for Trey McBride.
Yeah.
Brock Bowers had 11 games with 8 or more targets. Trey McBride had 10 games with 8 or more targets. If McBride just had normal touchdown production last year, it would probably be a more spirited debate.
Agreed.
He had 2 touchdown catches. The first one didn't come until like 5 minutes ago.
Right.
So McBride was unlucky in that department. Both incredible talents.
Yes.
They're young. McBride going into his 4th season. Bowers going into his 2nd season. Very much could see growth and maturity from each of these players. Brock Bowers gets a massive quarterback upgrade. So we're in agreement in terms of them being basically nip-tuck. Next question is, where are you taking them? Are these 2nd-round picks? Are these 1st-round picks? Or do we have a Travis Kelce from a few years ago? Remember, Kelce was going top 6, 8, 10 overall often. As of like 2 or 3 years ago. I don't think I can go quite that early. I'd probably do like maybe 2-3 turn if I was interested. Got it.
The problem is, and it's not a problem, but Brock Bowers, what he did last year was literally historical. Like, I mean, no tight end has ever had that season as a rookie. Now he adds someone that's going to touch the ball a billion times in Ashton Genty. So it's no longer just going to be funneled to Brock Bowers by a bad quarterback.
Yeah.
It's now going to be a more competent offense. And if I think it's going to be more competent offense, they're probably going to spread the ball around a little bit more. And by getting in that bell cow running back, I think that that's going to be something where I can't just bank on this is a guy that I can take at that Travis Kelce spot in the first round. And Trey McBride, I think, is the same thing, because if I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to take a step here in his second year, inevitably that's going to impact Trey McBride at least a little bit. Maybe not a huge amount.
Yeah, but a little bit.
But a little bit. And that's enough to put me in that 2-3 turn.
Okay, so I'm probably in the same spot. Now, this is where I believe Pierre Bouquet, who does a great job overseeing a lot of our fantasy stuff here at ESPN, told us one time, like, data shows 91% of the leagues at ESPN.com are 8 or 10 team leagues that play standard scoring, like PPR, which is our standard scoring.
Correct.
But I also understand that a lot of the people that are watching this show, the millions and millions of you, millions and millions of you that are watching us right now, are not just 10-team leaguers.
Yeah.
Who are hardcores. So I will bring this point up. In a 10-team league, I think you wait. I would, if I were doing a draft in a 10-team league for Brock Bowers or Trey McBride, I think that 2-3 turns like a pretty reasonable range. It's somewhere in like the 15 to 25 for those two guys.
Yep.
If you play in a big deep league, 16-team league, the edge you're gaining, like there's a world in which there's like 8 startable tight ends this year.
Yeah.
And you assuming health, those two guys are going to be 2 of the 8, and they're going to be 2 of the 3 biggest difference makers. And you land yourself with just a legitimate edge. So if it's a deeper league, I don't think there's like, if you're playing 16-team league, the War Room League, like I think it'd be fascinating, which many of you have heard us reference at the Fast. It's a big 16-team league made up of ESPNers here. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys goes in the first round, if not both.
I mean,
Just
back
because,
after
again,
the first.
you're sitting there and you're like, all right, so like my opponent's starting Cade Otton this year.
Right.
And I have Trey McBride. We'll talk about Otton later. Or like Hunter Henry this year, and I have Trey McBride. Like that's a massive, massive difference.
A huge difference.
Yep.
I'm with you. I likely wouldn't take one of these 2 tight ends because I think the next tier offers more value for me based on where you can get them drafted.
Meaning the one-man tier
The one-man tier that's coming up next. I think this is my favorite tight end to draft just based on what I believe is talent and where you can get him in fantasy drafts.
And a notable change. We go to the A tier, which is, again, the identical for you and I. It is George Kittle.
Yep.
So George Kittle, a one-man tier for the 49ers. He hasn't had 100 targets in a season since 2019. But have you looked at the pass catchers right now in San Francisco?
I have.
Currently healthy pass catchers for the San Francisco 49ers are George Kittle, Ricky Pearsall, Damian Johnston. That's a fake.
I was going to say, that sounds like a made-up name.
Yeah, that's a fake name.
Yeah.
There. I mean, I'm sure there are people named Damian Johnston throughout the world, but it's thin, right? Juwan Jennings is banged up. No more Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk. I'll stand on this one. Like, I just don't know if we see Brandon Ayuk at all this season. So, George Kittle has a real shot to be the focal point of the passing game this year. He has led the NFL, led tight ends in receiving yards in a season. He is a legit bet to get to not just 1,000 yards, but also 10 touchdowns. He's one of the best players we've ever seen at tight end. I think he is just ahead of Trey McBride in terms of highest paid tight ends ever. So Kittle, you're getting like I would say like a 2 to 3 round discount compared to McBride or Bowers. In our mock draft project, this is the last time I'll explain what it is. We did it over the summer. We did 20, it was actually way more than 20 mock drafts, but we did at least 2 mock drafts from spots 1 through 10 in the order. Kittle was amongst my highest exposure players, and his ADP, personal ADP for me, I was taking him at 48th overall.
I mean, we were talking about taking Brock or Trey McBride in that 15 to 25 range, and you can wait and get Kittle at 48 overall. That's why I think I love this tier so much. And I get it's just George Kittle, but you mentioned all of the pass catching. It feels like he's got a clear path to targets this year.
Mike's projecting him for 82 catches this year, which would equate to well north of 100 targets.
Yes, that would be awesome. And the dude, one of the things that we love about George Kittle is the guy's a warrior. If he's banged up, he will do everything in his power to continue to play through that. Now, eventually, Field, you get to the point where you're like, he's 31, turning 32, and it gets harder to be able to rebound from injuries. And I don't want to, it's tough to be able to quantify and factor that in, but that's part of why he's not in that A tier or that S tier. He's why in the A tier for me.
Yeah, they paid him, though.
They did. They gave him a bunch of money.
Yeah. So it would be the youth and the fact that, like, while right now it's thin, if Juwan Jennings is back and if Ricky Pearsall takes a step, and if
And
Christian
CMC
McCaffrey
stays
stays
healthy.
healthy,
Yeah.
Kittle might have weeks where he's target 3 or 4, whereas McBride and Bowers logically will be at worst the second target on their team most every single week.
Yep. I am totally with you on that.
All right, B tier is the last tier where I feel like excited. I mean,
Confident?
No, I feel confident, as I think there are other players that I feel excited about. I'm not sure if I'm confident.
Okay.
This is a big tier for me, bigger tier for me than you. Travis Kelce holding steady at 4.
Yep.
David Njoku, Sam Laporta, Evan Ingram, TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, and Jake Ferguson. We've only got 25 names here, Daniel, so let's just go through it. But you only have 4 players in your B tier. Who are they?
So my 4 players are Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson, David Njoku, and Evan Ingram. I consider these my mid-tier tight end ones, but with some flaws in their game.
And these guys are going way later than what we've been talking about.
100%.
Like we're talking about like 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round. Again, depending on how many drafts you do and who you're doing it with. I'll make the pro Travis Kelce case.
Go ahead, because I was going to say this stands out to me because you and I see Travis Kelce differently.
So it's a totally different version of Travis Kelce than what we saw as recently as 3 seasons ago.
Yep.
Who was a first round pick, who was the ultimate difference maker. But it was still pretty good last year, and in the context of like the tight end environment. He had 97 catches last season.
Yeah.
He had 9 games with 8 or more targets, Travis Kelce. So, and I don't think he played in week 18. So basically 9 of his 16 games, Travis Kelce was getting you 8 or more targets. Blindly, if you tell me a tight end's getting 8 or more targets, I'm starting that player. Like, if you're getting 8 or more targets as a tight end, it means you're good enough to deserve 8 or more targets. Like, this is not throwing the ball to your offensive tackle 8 times. So I like that number. The Chiefs are definitely deeper on paper this year, right?
Yeah.
And he's a year older for sure. But I think Travis Kelce's volume is good enough. When I know that tight end 4 seems big, but the more important part to me for Travis Kelce is that you might be getting tight end 4 in round 7 as opposed to 7th overall.
Sure.
So I'm still good with Kelce this year.
I see it differently just because, and you mentioned he's seeing 8 targets a game, but part of that is because that receiving core was just unbelievably banged up. Obviously, no Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown out for most of the year. You go through and you look at this situation, and it's like, okay, this year, if they're going to have a healthy Rashee Rice, and we'll see what's going to happen with that suspension
Still
potentially.
waiting on that, yeah.
We got Xavier Worthy. Hollywood Brown is back and being healthy. Isaiah Pacheco should be healthy, so their running game should be more involved in that.
Totally.
Last year, he finished as tight end 5. You have him as tight end 4, thinking he might even do better this year than what he did last year.
In part because, just
the state of the tight end spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, and these are tiers, right?
I think for Kelce, the one thing that gives me pause is we talked about it with Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
What happens when we get to December and the
got better
Chiefs?
last year.
I hear you, but he's going to be 36 years old this year.
So that actually is funny because I actually looked at it the opposite way because the Chiefs have kind of talked about it. Like when we need Travis, he's Travis.
Don't you think they need him in the playoffs and not in weeks 15 when they've already locked up a playoff spot?
I don't think that's the case this year. Like I think the AFC West is competitive. I think the AFC West could be an absolute tussle in the month of December.
Okay.
Chargers are legit. The Broncos are legit. The Raiders are going to be far from an easy out. So I think they're going to need Travis Kelce throughout the season. And again, I don't like every player that we're talking about from here on out has some serious warts.
Yes.
So you had Sam Laporta at 4. I had him at 6.
Yeah.
I don't like. He's really good. I think he's super talented. He's a 3rd-year player. Like there are implicit arrows going up. The biggest question is like, how do we know what Sam Laporta usage we're going to get after a rookie season? He had 10 touchdowns. He was awesome. And then last year, he had just 5 games with 5 or more catches. Like I would have thought that number would have been double that last year.
I am with you on that. He definitely started slow, had an ankle injury that dealt with, and I think that definitely impacted him early on.
Got better down the stretch.
I do feel like if he was on an offense similar to Trey McBride and Brock Bowers, he would be in the S tier for me. But there's a big difference between these 3 offenses. Brock Bowers has Ashton Genty and Jacoby Myers, right? That's it. Trey McBride has James Conner and Marvin Harrison Jr. No one else makes you nervous there. Right. In Detroit, you got Amon-Ra and J-Mo and David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs all to have to worry about. It's just they've got to spread the ball out more, which is why he lands in this B tier in spite of the fact that we've seen him be so unbelievably good. His flaw is that he's on a team that just has too many other good players on it.
Exactly. Yes. So that's why that's why I had him at 6. I just don't know if he's as likely to be peppered with targets as the player that I had 5th, which was David Njoku, who David Njoku is one of my favorite sort of stories of development. As a rookie, after his rookie season, he was a 1st-round pick. It was a year of the Browns had, I think, 3 first-round picks, and he was fine.
Yeah.
was okay throughout the first 3 or 4 years of his career. Then the Browns made him a contract, gave him a contract for 4 years and $58 million. And we were like, whoa.
That's a lot of money for David Njoku.
Dude's been pretty money since then.
Yes, he has.
7+ targets in 8 of his last 9 games last season. Quarterback's a question mark, but he and Jerry Jeudy, even amidst the wave of quarterback play they were dealing with last year, they were the centerpieces of this offense.
Yes.
I don't think they're going to have much threats. They're not going to have many threats to not be the centerpiece of this offense. I'm in on Njoku. Nice.
I am too.
I think he's just a nice mid-tier target.
I think the thing that gives
I'm
me
playing footsie here.
No, it's all good. Please, I like it. One of the things that I think about in Njoku is just that fear of last year. We had maybe the greatest fantasy quarterback in the game throwing footballs to David Njoku. Jameis Winston.
He is a legend.
And because he just doesn't care, right? He elevated David Njoku to a crazy level because of the way that he just throws it out there. Now, if Joe Flacco's under center.
Flacco too, yeah.
I know, he was. So hopefully we get a number of games with Joe Flacco. But the question mark after that is what happens if the Browns decide, okay, we've seen enough Joe. Let's see what these young pups look like.
Yeah, I'd like to do the data on that at some point. Like how much of an unknown quarterback, or how much of a not yet polished quarterback, how much does that impact a player's output?
Yeah.
So I'm good with David Njoku. He cracked your B tier or no?
He did crack my B tier.
So we're in the same spot here.
Yep.
Evan Ingram was also in your B tier.
I love Evan Ingram this year.
Me too. There's potential for an elite volume player. He is one of those guys that non-PPR managers might feel less excited about.
Agreed.
Because big plays, not easy to come by for an Evan Ingram. Just off the top of your head, when you list the pass catchers most likely to do damage for the Broncos this year, who comes first?
Cortland Sutton.
Okay, who comes second?
Evan Ingram.
There you go. Right, so ascending offense, quarterback who we think is going to make a leap in year 2 after being really good in year 1. Potential second option there, even if the touchdown upside and big play upside might be lower than a couple of the guys near the top. I think Evan Ingram's going to end up having a really solid.
I say this every single year about Evan Ingram. He is a chain mover, not a touchdown scorer. And in a PPR format, especially if you're going to wait at the tight end spot, you can wait and get a guy that's going to catch 6, 7, 8 balls a game.
Yep.
By the way, the other wide receiver there that you maybe think about is Marvin Mims. Yep. But if I said to you, hey, he's going to have more targets at the end of the season, assuming health, than a deep threat in Marvin Mims, I wouldn't be shocked if he is that number 2, pass catcher there in that offense.
Yeah, the Broncos have this unique offensive philosophy right now where for fantasy football, these guys have less value, but in real life football, they have better value,
Huge
right?
value.
Like Marvin Mims, to your point, just the speed to stress a defense changes the way that you have to defend them in the running game and the underneath passing game. But for fantasy, we don't give out points for air yards, much as Mike
would love that.
Wait, hold on. Mike, still not here, huh?
Still not here. We're doing a 12-team mock draft on Monday. You think Mike's going to actually show up to that?
0 shot.
I'm wondering if he's even going to be here.
All right, let's rip through these because I think I am holding us up.
Last one. What about TJ Hawkinson? This is the last one in my tier. You got a few more, but how do you feel about TJ?
Yeah, Hawk, I sort of feel like I don't exactly know what we're getting this year because part of the pathway for elite TJ Hawkinson a couple of years ago when he was with the Vikings is that even if he was the number 3, he was the clear number 3 in potentially a very good Vikings offense. They got good depth, man. Josh Oliver was playing legit snaps for them. They extended Oliver again this offseason, their backup tight end. So Hawk had 27 or fewer yards in 5 of the 10 regular season games played. I get it. The knee injury was severe. He was coming off of. The upside is apparent because of the talent. But I don't think TJ Hawkinson having, it's Justin Jefferson 1. If you had to sort of forecast 2, it's Jordan Addison and then Hawkinson. But more he might be closer to 4 than 2.
I would agree with that. He was trending upwards to be a top 5 tight end a couple of years ago, and unfortunately, this ACL, MCL injury.
He's a beast.
My hope is what happened is what we often see from players. He comes back from injury, but that season where he comes back, he's still rounding into form.
Yeah.
Now a full year removed, it's are we going to be able to see him back to being fully healthy? And then the question is, okay, it's still a new quarterback. So that's part of why we have him in this tier here.
Yep.
That's the end of my B tier. Why don't you give me the rest of yours, and then I'll give you my B- C+ tier.
Yeah, Mark Andrews news, by the way, that Isaiah Likely's got that foot fracture we told you about previously. Sounds like he's really uncertain for week 1. And when he is back, they're going to A, be careful, and B, Mark Andrews is an elite red zone weapon still. Say whatever you want about him. And
I will.
Sure there are Bills
I will when you're
fans
done.
who are dude, come on, we saw that. Hit 11 touchdowns last year. That was tied for the 4th most. And he got red hot down the stretch.
Yeah.
So, again, these are the days where we're past Mark Andrews going 3rd overall or 2nd overall for tight ends. But Mark Andrews in the 9th or 10th round is still Lamar Jackson's trusted red zone target. Valuable to me. Jake Ferguson, going to feast this year. Ferguson, you can make a case for being higher. He might have a little bit of Evan Ingram in him. He should have a ton of volume this year. Good volume this year. It's going to be CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, of course, but a really good middle-of-the-field player. The Cowboys told us what they feel about him with that 4-year, $52 million contract.
Yeah, I'm very excited about Jake Ferguson. I'm all in on Dak Prescott. I think that passing game is going to be really good this year.
Yep.
Mark Andrews, I just want to say really quickly, and that's your B tier. I'm going to throw up my B- C+ tier while I'm talking about Mark Andrews because he's in there. My tier is Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Jake Ferguson, and I close it out with Colston Loveland. Mark Andrews makes me so nervous, though, Field, because he had 55 catches last year, and he had 11 touchdowns. Yeah. He caught a touchdown 1 in every 5 passes that he saw. Yeah, that is so unbelievably unsustainable.
Dude, the last, 2 months of the season, he was unbelievable.
Red hot. But there's a part of me, and you're going to see it as we get farther down this tier. I do believe in Isaiah Likely being the next man up in this offense at the tight end spot.
Isaiah Likely is one of my favorite buy candidates, no matter how this season goes.
Agreed.
Okay. Isaiah Likely is going to have to defer some amount of snaps to Mark Andrews this season.
Yeah.
I think this is Mark Andrews last year in Baltimore. Isaiah Likely the Ravens have talked about this. They have discussed a contract with him, checking in with some people recently. Just prior to the injury, it wasn't done yet. And this injury probably puts, at least impacts talks a little bit.
Yep.
But I think Isaiah Likely is the man in 2026 and beyond.
I agree.
So buy low because you might be getting a player who 2026 outlook is top 8 tight end for fantasy purposes.
I'm going to do a quick nerdy deep dive.
Yep.
Mike Clay, nerdy deep dive coming up.
Please.
All right. Mark Andrews, 2019, 24.6% target share. That's good.
Yep.
2020. 25.2% target share.
That's legit. Yeah.
That's really good. 2021, 25.9% target share. Yeah. Again, as a tight end, that's awesome. 2022, 28% target share, even better. 2023, 22.1%. So it dropped a little bit.
Yeah.
And then last year, 14.6%.
Yeah, dropped a lot.
And he just was not seeing targets in this offense. That's the reason why we have him in this lower tier, because he's still only 29. He's not 36 like Travis Kelce is.
Yep.
He's still actually pretty young, but it just looks like he is sort of on his way out in this Baltimore offense. Why don't you give me your C tier Field, Yates, and then we can dive in.
Yeah, and we'll be quick here as well. Actually, the next tier, we're going to be quick because a lot of those guys feel the same to me. Dallas Goedert, Tucker Kraft, Colston Loveland, and Tyler Warren. So we have 3 players who are not like the other.
Yep.
Dallas Goedert has never reached 60 catches in his career.
Nope.
His career high for touchdown catches is 5. But Dallas Goedert's one of those guys who, at the end of the season, he's going to be tight end 10 or 11. It's going to be 0.2 points ahead of tight end 12 or 13. Just good enough that you're yeah, he's a starter. But then you're wait, he's literally a fraction of a point better than all the other random options behind him. Guys who are spiking.
More yo-yo. Yeah.
Tucker Kraft, Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren fit into a similar category. All really, really talented guys, all playing in offenses where either in the case of Tucker Kraft and Colston Loveland, a lot of mouths to feed.
Yep.
In the case of Tyler Warren, his quarterback's a major question mark.
Tucker Kraft, I want to ask you this. Who had more catches last year, Tyler Conklin, Juwan Johnson, or Tucker Kraft?
I'm going to go with Tyler Conklin.
Tyler Conklin had one more catch. Those are not names. If I'm giving you Tyler Conklin and Juwan Johnson as names to consider next to Tucker Kraft, that doesn't feel great. He was tight end 18 in receptions.
Yeah.
Tight end 18.
Yeah.
But tight end 4 in touchdowns. Touchdowns really elevated him there.
Yep. He's a big play guy too, 14 yards.
Who did the Packers add this year that is going to, you're saying, boy, that's going to be the big end zone target? Matthew Golden is not a big guy to be in the end zone.
Well, the big thing for Tucker Kraft is the competition could be a healthy Luke Musgrave. But again, these are so right now you almost have to decide whether you're looking at the positive view or the negative.
That's how you want to go.
Positive view for Tucker Kraft is he's talented with big playability.
Yep.
The positive for Colston Loveland is he is a superb athlete who was the 10th pick in the draft. He's going to split snaps with Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet's good.
Yeah.
Tyler Warren.
They paid him a bunch of money last year too, didn't they?
4 years and $48 million.
Yeah.
$50 million. He's good. Tyler Warren's a great prospect.
Yep.
His quarterback might be, I don't even say his name anymore.
Well, okay.
He who shall not be named.
This is perfect because I feel like I need to at least just ask the question, but I already know what it feels like the answer is going to be.
Yeah.
2 years ago, we watched Sam Laporta as a rookie just unbelievably dominate at the tight end position. Last year, we watched Brock Bowers just crush it as a rookie at the tight end position. Even if these guys are talented enough to be able to be in that same echelon from a talent and athleticism level, do you believe that either of these rookies are going to be able to produce like we have seen in these recent years at the tight end spot?
Colston Loveland, less likely than Tyler Warren. I think Tyler Warren's more likely just because there are fewer mouths to feed.
Okay.
Now, that being said, we're nervous about Michael Pittman
I was
Jr.
going to say, we barely can trust the wide receivers.
Josh Downs. So, yeah, these feel less likely than where those guys were at. But Warren, I think, has legit red zone upside as well.
Okay, my C tier, for what it's worth, is Dalton Kincaid, Tucker Kraft, Dallas Goedert, Tyler Warren, Hunter Henry, and Isaiah Likely. That's my tight ends 12 through 17.
I like it, yeah.
Dalton Kincaid is tough for me, Field, because here's where I'm at. I'm hoping that he's on that David Njoku path of, you know what? It does take a couple years. He's not that guy that just was here automatically and like we've seen it, but who else are you really trusting right now? I get Keon Coleman can absolutely be that guy, but he is not yet. I have not seen it to be like Keon Coleman is the alpha in that Bills passing game.
Yeah.
Khalil Shakir is a pass catcher. Like he's a guy that is not going to go out there and score 10 touchdowns and 1,500 yards.
Seasons
Exactly. So like if you're saying we have a former first round tight end that still could be in a Josh Allen-led offense that's going to score a ton of points. Part of me is like, this might be the last year I'm in as a potential top 12 to 15 tight end. If he doesn't do it now,
then
I'm probably out.
Yeah, right. He has just 4 touchdowns in 2 seasons. Now he's missed some time due to injury. It's tricky, man, because you're right. While there's no alpha pass catcher in Buffalo, there are a lot of guys, right? Like reports have been strong for Josh Palmer, who's a wide receiver sleeper, and Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir, you mentioned, and Dawson Knox is still
James
there.
Cook is still going to catch passes out of the backfield.
Jeezy's out of the ball. That much is for sure.
Yep.
D tier and beyond. Here's what I want to do, Daniel, and you tell me if you object. I'm going to give you names, and I'm just going to kind of go through like the ones that at least have my attention.
Okay.
Hunter Henry,
Yep.
Jonnu Smith, Mike Gesicki, mentioned Dalton Kincaid, Cade Otton, Zach Ertz, Brenton Strange, Kyle Pitts. Here's the problem, Daniel, is that like there's a way in which some of those guys have some success, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like Hunter Henry, Patriots have way more players this year to throw the football to.
They do.
Jonnu Smith is one of 3 tight ends that will play for Pittsburgh. Mike Gesicki now has to compete with Noah Fant.
Yeah.
Cade Otton was feasted last year, but that was when the wide receivers were hurt, right?
And they added another wide receiver in the first round this year.
Yep. So Zach Ertz, old reliable, he had 91 targets last year. He's one of those guys that will end up being fine.
I mean, if McLaurin gets moved, actually, you could see him be a nice value at tight end.
Kyle Pitts, I have no comment on. I'm not going to take the bait again. I mean, we all have, right? Like,
yes,
yeah, like,
dude. The talking points are so easy. He's still only 24 years old. Are you kidding me? He's got a better offensive coordinator, but it's just, I can't.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, and never play
I'm
fantasy
passing.
football.
Forget it. Yeah.
Brenton Strange has my attention.
I agree.
2nd round pick out of Penn State a couple of years ago. I don't do this nearly as much as our friend Greg, who runs the Coach Speak Index. Very valuable resource. If you haven't started following on Twitter, he watches, like, I think every head coach, GM, assistant coach, player press conference, and aggregates really useful information, especially for fantasy football. And I remember at one point he highlighted some comments from James Gladstone, who's the GM of the Jaguars, about Brenton Strange. And it struck me as pretty positive. Like,
yeah.
Hey, this guy is someone who, and I think it might have been on the heels of the Evan Ingram release. So, and by the way, at that time, the Jaguars had the 5th pick in the draft, and there was a thought, could they be a Tyler Warren team to surround Trevor Lawrence with more and more weapons? They instead traded up for, of course, Travis Hunter.
They did it just in a different way.
So, Brenton Strange has my attention. He is the sleeper in that category.
I agree. I like Brenton Strange this year if you want to sleep on somebody. I do not like Jonnu Smith. The idea that you have him as tight end 16 just makes me want to vomit. And it's not about you.
Yeah, it's...
You know what happens? You know the highest he's ever finished when Arthur Smith has been a part of his offensive coordinating stuff?
Tight end 21?
Tight end 17.
Okay. Yeah.
So, like, this is basically the ceiling right now. What happened last year, I do not think is going to happen again. And you already mentioned it. They've got 3 tight ends there.
Yeah. The only way that he gets to where I have him is if the Steelers are basically saying, we're pretty weak at wide receiver other than DK Metcalf.
They should be saying that.
As a slot receiver.
Right.
And pepper him with targets. I mean, they made this trade. Like, they targeted him and they gave him a raise.
Yeah.
So there's some plan. But then again, plenty of coaches and executives have plans for players, and then those plans prove ill-fated.
These guys, Field, you would consider them tight end 2s. You can't trust any of them leaving a 12-team draft with any of these as your starter, right? You would not.
I would not want to leave a 12-team draft with any of my.
I just wanted to make sure when we're looking at these guys. Yeah.
Ideally, no.
All right, so my D tier: Kyle Pitts, Chigo Okonkwo, Brenton Strange, Mike Gesicki, Zach Ertz, Kate Otten, Pat Freiermuth, and then Jonnu Smith.
Yeah.
Your E tier has a couple more guys that I just mentioned in there as well.
Darren Waller's back in the league.
He is.
Yeah. Did you hear that?
We had a crazy dynasty move for Darren Waller.
Yeah. In that league that I was talking about earlier, you can fill in the blanks.
So one of our managers had Deshaun Watson on their roster, decided to drop Deshaun Watson in order to go out and pick up Darren Waller coming back because fantasy value in Deshaun Watson is just so low, even in Dynasty. How crazy is that? We're just done. So anyways, Darren Waller back in the league. Are you buying it here in Miami?
Man,
Based on where you have him, it doesn't seem like it.
I'm not. Yeah.
Okay. Good story.
Cool story?
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
I kind of liked him as a rapper as well. And the Jonnu Smith role was very fruitful last year. I felt like the Jonnu Smith role was not something that the Dolphins wanted to be the case last year.
Yes.
And by the way, they could have paid Jonnu if they wanted to tap into that role again.
They want to throw the ball
last year
to
was like what's the expression? Like innovation is the something of desire or need or something. I don't know. Whatever. What I was trying to say is
the mother of invention, the mother of necessity.
Yeah, necessity. That's what I was thinking.
Right?
Go. Is that like they did what they did last year? By the way, like nailed it. Professional podcaster here, Field Yates, absolutely nailed that slogan, that saying right there. What I was trying to say was that the Dolphins did that last year with Jonnu Smith. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to, because they were such a wreck offensively otherwise.
Yep. I'm with you on that. All right, Field, when you look at this list, we went through all of our tiers, S tier through our E tier.
Yep.
Is there one that you feel like is your favorite tier to target when drafting? You think the value and where you're getting them is just too good?
Yeah, I think it's got to be S, A, or B.
S, A, or B.
To me, it's one of the first 10, or else I leave and I'm like, crap. And the question, so if I don't have one of those first 10 guys, my number 10 player being Jake Ferguson, I get a little bit nervous, and I wonder, do I have to throw 2 darts rather than 1?
Agreed.
Like, am I drafting Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren, who are going to be going late in drafts? There are some who feel like, no, the answer is you never draft 2 darts. You assume that other reasonable dart throws will go undrafted, and if they hit after week 1, you can grab them.
Yep.
But it's extremely weak. We are in deja vu all over again, right? For many years, it was tight end sucks. Here we are again. Tight end looks very, very, very weak this year, Daniel. How many players on this list do you think have a legitimate shot of being the highest scoring tight end this season?
3.
Okay, 3. I would throw 1 more in there. It's very unlikely. I would throw Sam Laporte in there only because he plays on an absolutely nuclear offense.
You. Is that just because I wore his jersey today? Is that what it is?
No, he just plays in a nuclear offense that, like, if Sam Laporta had 14 touchdowns this year, like, that's possible, right? I'm not counting on it, but
I don't want this to happen. But if you tell me that Amon-Ra gets hurt, who becomes the guy under the middle that, like, Jared's looking for, right?
And by the way, even if Amon-Ra's healthy for 17 games, like, we could have Laporta go for 70 catches for 1,000 yards or 950 yards and 14 touchdowns.
Yes.
Like, that's, again, it would be a monster tight end season, but it could be, who was it a few years ago from tight ends that just kept scoring all the touchdowns? Oh, Eric Ebron.
Oh.
Right. And Mike was just
as if you had to remind me.
Mike was like more of a LeBron guy than Ebron guy, so stop messing with my brain. We ripped through tight ends, Daniel, in part because it's not a great spot, and also because I want questions from the YouTube chat.
Honestly, if we got any questions, let's go ahead and throw them up on our screen now that we're through our tight ends. And this can be about any of the tiers that we have had so far. It doesn't just need to be about tight ends. However, obviously, like you said, this is the weakest of the positions when I am going through and drafting. It is the position that I feel like I have to keep tabs on the most.
Yep.
Because if it gets away from you, like you said, at those pole spots, especially on the ends, you can lose out on 4, 5, 6 tight ends quick in a run. So let's throw up a couple of questions that we have here. Our producers are getting them around so we can answer a few of these. First one comes from Terry McCulley. Would you take a top-tier tight end or a top-tier quarterback? He's taking a quarterback.
Not going to lie. I thought that was going to be coming from either Terry McLaurin.
I thought so, too.
Wasn't it Terry McCauley, who's a ref?
Terry McCauley is a ref. Yeah, good
now,
call.
I believe, the NBC rules broadcast analyst. You do a top 10, top-tier tight end or top-tier quarterback? To me, like if I'm targeting one or the other, and by the way, good question from Terry, because I think it's got to be one or the other, not both.
Yep.
You can just find yourself in a bit precarious spot with running back or wide receiver depth. I'm taking a tight end.
Me too. I think quarterback is deep enough.
It's 3 tight ends. We just spent 40 minutes riffing about how bad the tight ends are. So to me, it's one of Brock Bowers or Trey McBride.
I can give you 5 quarterbacks that I think could finish as QB1, and I could give you another 5 quarterbacks after that that I think could be potential top 5 quarterbacks.
Dak Prescott could be a top 5 quarterback. You might be getting him in round 12.
Okay, so Dak Prescott's quarterback 14. Let's see, tight end 14 right now. Dallas Goedert or Tyler Warren. Do you think that they have that same chance?
I mean,
I
they
do
have
not.
a much lower chance.
Yes.
Than Dak having a big year.
Agreed.
Yep.
So I would go with tight end there as well. It's tough to go wrong drafting either one of the top of these positions because when you have an island position, again, you just want to be able to get that good player, but I would definitely go tight end. All right. Next question we have, thrown it up there from our YouTube stream, comes from Let's Go Sports Field. Cowboys have 2 great wide receivers, but considering they're both good and they will both get covered, is it worth it to go and get Pickens or CeeDee Lamb?
Well, what we know about CeeDee Lamb is you're going to have to be in the first 7 picks, 8 picks to get him in the first round.
Yep.
To me, it's CeeDee Lamb. It's not close.
Yeah.
George Pickens is talented, and maybe what he needed more than anything was a change of scenery. Not lost on me that the Steelers' track record of trading away wide receivers at the perfect time is like borderline flawless.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown, there's like a list of them, right?
Chase Claypool.
Martavius Bryant, yep. Did Mike Wallace get traded, or did he walk in free agency? Bottom line is that, like, you leave Pittsburgh, it usually gets worse, not better. Emmanuel Sanders, one of the Deontay Johnson, right? Like, great example there. Yeah. So Emmanuel Sanders, like the rare exception there. George Pickens needs to make a decision. Like, can he reel it in? Because if he does, you know what he will be in 6 months, 7 months, 8 months? Super rich. He's a free agent.
Yeah.
But to me, it's CeeDee Lamb, who I think we had this conversation. Like, I think we did the show last year, and it might be a fun show to do again if time permits this year. Like, the players that you can make a case for going number 1 overall. Not that you would, but you can make the case.
But you can make the case.
CeeDee Lamb, there's a case. I mean, last year at this time, we were talking about CeeDee Lamb as a number 1 overall pick.
If Dak Prescott goes back to, what was it, 2001, I think, where he started the season averaging 27 fantasy points per game before he got hurt.
Did you say 2001?
Was that, sorry, 2021? Did I say 2001?
I was like, is this a joke right now? Like,
that's
Troy
a
Aikman still the quarterback in 2001?
But was it
not Troy? But
it was 2021, wasn't it? I believe it was the year that Dak Prescott started on fire. He was on pace for like 7,000 passing yards and 70 touchdowns.
And by the way, 2 years ago, remember after the bye, Mike had that crazy stat. It was like post-bye, CeeDee Lamb had just some absurd gap between him and the next best target getter in the entire league.
I will just say this. I am fully with you. CeeDee Lamb, clearly the wide receiver if I'm going to pick one in the draft. Obviously, you've got to be in the spot to even get CeeDee.
Yeah.
But I just keep coming back to this. The Cowboys didn't add anybody that I'm excited about at running back. I think they're going to throw the ball a ton. This is a passing game that I will find involvement in one way or another, whether it's Dak, CeeDee, George Pickens, or Jake Ferguson. I'm going to have probably one of those guys on my fantasy squad because I think they're going to be throwing the ball a ton.
I agree.
All right, we got another one. I believe a follow-up question. Same person that just asked.
Right back in it.
Let's go sports. Last question. I'm an unbiased Steelers fan and not really sure when the right time is to draft Metcalf, as good as he is, considering he's our number 1 wide receiver. Where would you be looking at DK Metcalf right now?
So he's wide receiver. Give me the ADP if you don't mind. Yeah. He is wide receiver 17 or 18 for me. There's a world in which you go super running back heavy, or you go like 2 running backs plus a tight end, or 2 running backs plus a quarterback, and DK Metcalf leaves as your wide receiver 1. Interestingly enough, for the Steelers, like, it sort of feels like you traded George Pickens away, and I guess it was after the DK Metcalf trade, but it was like you got the supercharged version of George Pickens and DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
What we know about DK is this: when you target him a lot, he'll be great.
Yeah.
The problem is that for whatever reason, like, he wasn't targeted frequently enough. He's not this kind of guy where with like a CeeDee Lamb or an Amon-Ra St. Brown or you name it, amongst those top tier wide receivers, Puka Nacua definitely. Like, let's run like 4 wide receiver screens a game for him, right? DK Metcalf is just bombs away, right?
Yeah.
He's the best bet for a 20-plus yard catch in the entire NFL. The reality is, no matter if your quarterback is elite at throwing the football down the field or not, and I think Rodgers is plenty good enough in this area, lower efficiency on the field.
Yeah.
That's just how it works.
Yep. Right now, ADP is 49.8.
Yeah, that's
so basically
reasonable.
50.
Yeah.
Let me give you a couple names around him, though, because I'm curious if you would be in this spot or not. Marvin Harrison Jr. or DK Metcalf?
Whew, tough one. Marvin Harrison Jr.
I think
No,
so.
I've got DK ranked ahead of him.
Do you?
DK, yeah, it's close.
Okay.
But
I mean, that's a gut call.
that's why
You're
it's
right
close,
there, right?
Yeah, it's close, yeah.
Mike Evans or DK Metcalf?
I have Evans a couple spots ahead of DK.
Okay. Xavier Worthy or DK Metcalf?
I have DK Metcalf ahead of Xavier Worth.
Okay. Last one, DJ Moore.
I have DJ Moore and DK Metcalf back-to-back.
Okay.
So it's very, very close.
Right in
So
that range.
The ADP is reflecting where we're at. I think we'll dive into this a lot over the next, I guess we have a month and 3 days to the season. Is like a lot of our considerations too, when you're talking about players going really high, is like throw some names that are not DK Metcalf or not wide receivers. Understand that like your prior picks are going to dictate some of this, but like who are some of the names that are going there as well that are
In that same range that aren't wide receivers, you got Sam Laporta at 48.1, Metcalf's at 50.
I'm more DK, yep.
You got Chuba Hubbard and Omari and Hampton.
Hampton ahead of DK. Chuba very close.
Chuba's close.
I lean a little bit more Chuba because of positional depth.
The quarterback that's in that range is
Joe Burrow, right?
Patrick Mahomes.
All right, I'm DK over Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow is a little bit higher than that.
You know what? I think Joe Burrow might be going end of round 4, like 39th or 38th.
He is, in fact, going 34.8. So in the,
Even
yeah.
higher, he's climbing up.
Yep. I guess when we talked so nicely about him, it helped us impact the ADP. All right. Next question comes from Isaac. Isaac, let's throw your YouTube chat question up there. It says, top moves this offseason that's projected to have a big effect in fantasy. Any big movement so far this year off the offseason that you feel like this guy is going to smash?
Oh, we did have some big offseason movement this past year. I mean, the biggest move this offseason was Ashton Genty going to the Raiders, 6th overall. No matter where Ashton Genty went, it was going to be a big move. But going to the Raiders was like the Raiders and the Cowboys were the two spots where it was like, all right, and I wasn't expecting this to happen, but there was a time where it was like, could Ashton Genty go to the Jaguars? And he would have definitely been the focal point, but like they have busier backfields. They had a busier backfield than the Raiders did and that the Cowboys did. So Ashton Genty to me is the most consequential move of the offseason for fantasy purposes.
I've got two that I think are really interesting that I'm in on. One of them being a guy that I still think, regardless of the fact that he's 32 years old, is going to smash in Los Angeles, and that's Devontae Adams.
That would be another one that's gigantic.
Yes,
right?
he should be huge.
The deck chairs being shuffled there.
I viewed Devontae so much more like what we saw last year than the ghost of what we saw from Cooper Kupp at the end of the season. You know Matthew Stafford can find two alpha wide receivers, get them both involved, so I'm big on him. And we talked about him on today's show. I think Evan Engram coming over to this Broncos offense at the tight end spot. I think that's another spot where you can look at someone. Other than that, I feel like it's mostly rookies that really like shake the needle. Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp. We had some other people move, but I don't think they move the fantasy needle as much.
A lot of guys go from places where like they kind of hold value, right? Like DK Metcalf in Pittsburgh versus DK Metcalf in Seattle is similar value to me. Right?
Debo Samuel, is that similar value to what he had in San Francisco?
Debo, I'd say this, and again, Debo for whatever reason seems to be an easy target, but Debo going to DC. I think if you told me he was staying in San Francisco versus Debo going to the Commanders, my outlook is rosier with the Commanders, in part because sometimes when you have a change of scenery, it's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And you're going into the final year of your contract. And as I understand it, I mean, they agreed to an amended contract, the Commanders and Debo did. But it was like staying the exact same, right? Like no extra years. I don't mean staying the exact same literally because that would not be amended. But I mean exact same number of years, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes what teams do is they'll pacify a player. You're lying to with Alex
They just did it
recently, right? To like, hey, we're good for this year. We'll worry about next year. Debo has a ton to play for. And this is a guy who has a chance to get one more bite at the apple.
Yep, I'm with you on that. Ideally, we see him return kind of that 2021. He's not going to touch the ball. He's not going to run as much as he did back in 2021, but I want to see him get back to being able to be utilized a little bit more. All right, we got two more questions here from our YouTube chat. This one comes from Dave Pierce. Is the quarterback depth deep enough to go straight running backs and wide receivers in your first 2 or 3 rounds of a super flex draft this year? Boy, the end of that question is what makes it interesting. Super flex, we almost always say, I want to grab at least one top tier running back to anchor my quarterback room. I usually say that. I want to grab one quarterback, usually in the first or second round, to anchor my super, because I'm going to have 2 quarterbacks that I start. Did I say it wrong?
I think you said, I always want to draft one top tier running back to anchor my quarterback room. And I was like,
sounds ridiculous.
I'm not the smartest guy. And that was evidence that I'm not the smartest guy. So you were saying, ideally, you grab a quarterback early in one of the first 2
David
rounds.
Montgomery threw a touchdown pass last year, Phil Yates. I mean, come on.
I feel the same way. Like, I like walking away with at least one quarterback.
Yeah.
The only way in which what Dave suggested works out is if others are doing the same thing as you. Like if the first, and I'm making this up, the first 5 picks of a super flex draft are, let's say, Lamar Jackson, and then Jamar Chase, and then Bijan Robinson, and then Jahmyr Gibbs and Saquon Barkley, you might be like, oh, this is a patient drafting group. But I think more likely you're just going to see so many quarterbacks go off the board. So you can kind of follow the train a little bit. I don't know, man. I just get worried when you're sitting there and it's like, my 2 quarterbacks are, and again, these guys have some promise, but it's like Bryce Young and Tua. And you're like,
right,
it just might not work out. It could work out, but it might not work
But
out,
it might not. I think that's also easier to do, Field, when you are in the middle of a round, because you're able to not fall victim to those runs. If you wait, let's say the entire first round goes and you got no quarterbacks that come off the board, you're like, well, wow, I can just wait. I'm going to grab the best player here. Maybe it's Christian McCaffrey, right?
Yep.
I get him at 10 or 12 in this super flex league. But now you've got to wait 20 to 25 picks. You know how many quarterbacks can come off in a run in a row like that?
Dude,
and it can, wow, you ever used a microphone before?
No, I haven't. Remember last year in our old studio where every 30 seconds it just...
Field's microphone just tipped over onto him for those that are listening at home rather than watching. But anyways, if you are at the end, I just feel like those runs can crush you in a super flex league if you are not careful.
I also feel like there's so much adjustment that you can make once the season begins.
Yeah.
Trades exist, and I love trading in fantasy football. That it's like identify the most logically valuable commodity in your league, right? So if it's a super flex league, quarterbacks, most logically valuable thing. If it's a normal size roster, like that dynasty league that we play in, we've got 2 running backs and 3 flexes. So you could argue that a number 1 running back is just as valuable as a quarterback because you could play 5 running backs in half PPR league, right? Identify the most logically valuable commodity and just keep stockpiling those guys. So if you walk away and you're like, well, I have Josh Allen and I have Brock Purdy and I have a dart throw on JJ McCarthy, that's fine. Worst case scenario is Josh and Brock are going to be good. Josh, great. JJ hits and you're like, great, I can turn this into something else.
I think having 3 quarterbacks, 3 usable quarterbacks in a super flex league is very important to me. The one thing I will say is I get sometimes frustrated because there are managers, and we all know them, that they're like, oh, well, I've got plenty of quarterbacks, so I'm going to ask for the king's ransom because I know you don't have any. And it's just like, all right, well, then I just can't trade with you.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I would say the best leagues for me are the leagues where trades go down and people are also somewhat reasonable in trades.
Agreed.
No trade is ever going to be perfect.
Nope.
Just now there's not many Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff plus 2 first-round picks.
If the Lions had won the Super Bowl that next year, that would have been a perfect trade. I would have called that a perfect trade.
And they still could.
Yes.
By the way, they could easily win a Super Bowl this year or next or any time with Jared Goff under center.
That trade worked out perfect for the Rams. It's exactly what they wanted. And Lions fans were thrilled with it. But in fantasy football, it's really tough to thread that needle to have 2 managers that are like, hey, I'm not trying to screw you. Let's both make both our teams better. This helps both of us. All right, we got one more question here from our YouTube chat. Make sure you're being in there all season long. We want to continue to get as many questions as we can. This one comes from Trevor. Most likely candidate for a CJ Stroud type sophomore slump, Field Yates. Little negativity to end the show.
Yes. All right. So Trevor, on the one hand, there were just 2 quarterbacks who really thrived last year of the 6, right? Yep. That being Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix. So I don't a slump for Drake May or Caleb Williams. Neither one of them.
It's just staying where they were.
Incredible, right? It's just playing a lot where they were.
I don't want to say it, but if I had to choose one, I would think that Bo Nix. I don't think that Caleb Williams and Drake May count for this conversation. They were already quarterbacks 15 or whatever. I think it has to be Bo Nix. I don't think Jaden Daniels can slump.
I'm not worried about those guys in this regard. CJ's a pocket passer only.
That's true.
So part of the downside for CJ Stroud, and Mike, to his credit, if he ever comes back to the show, maybe he'll hear this. But he talked about something the downside value of CJ Stroud going into last year. Something a non running quarterback is just harder to have major fantasy days.
Yep.
So I don't think there's a perfect comparison for CJ Stroud this year.
I agree.
Because Michael Penix Jr. is the most likely to play mostly from the pocket, but Michael Penix Jr. started 3 games last season.
Right.
I feel good about the second-year quarterback class.
Me too.
I feel really good.
I just wanted to answer the question because I'm a man of the people, but this is the thing. I don't think that any of these guys that are in this spot are really going to slump. I actually just think you're going to see those other two guys, Drake May and Caleb Williams, get better than they were as a rookie.
Caleb is probably the answer because the hype is going to be so significant surrounding a number 1
That's
overall
fair.
pick that, like, if he doesn't ball out, it's going to be like, hey, here we go, 2 straight years. Yates and Daniel should have been the pick, and yada, yada, yada. But I like Caleb this year. I like Ben Johnson. I'm a Ben Johnson stan.
I feel like there's actually more expectations. This is a crazy thing to say. More expectations on Caleb Williams in his second year than there are on Jaden Daniels because we saw Jaden Daniels, and so we think we know what's going to happen. Caleb Williams, it's like we're prognosticating. Yeah. He's going to get better. He's got all these new pass catchers to be able to throw the football to. He got an unbelievable wizard as an OC and head coach.
Yep.
Like there's so many reasons why he's supposed to take this step that if he doesn't, the expectation feels like it's just bigger because we already saw it from Jaden Daniels.
Totally.
Right?
I agree on that. Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for us today. Field, thanks for hanging out with me all week.
Great week, man. Let's do it again next week, and the week after, and the week after.
I'm down for that. Make sure you go back and check out the rest of our shows if you want to see the rest of our tiers. We're going to do a mock draft on Monday. Maybe Mike Clay will show up. Maybe he won't. Who cares? We're not really sure. Don't forget to love each other. Be kind to yourself. And good luck in the rest of football season. We'll see you guys.